is Saul Alinsky? No one asks because no one is ever going to watch this. Saul Alinsky is known as America's first community organizer. A political organizer from Chicago who basically hung out with a bunch of academics, politicians, and street criminals, and refined a system of propaganda which is the left's, and sometimes the right's, primary tool. Saul took ideas he had learned from a myriad of sources, plied them together into a consistent and cohesive thesis, and used it to effectively push around his political opponents. He put it all into a book called Rules for Radicals, and it's the primary propaganda bible for a good portion of world politics today, especially in the US. Rules for Radicals was published in 1971. In it, Alinsky himself described it as Machiavelli's The Prince, but for the have-nots. He made specific mention that ideology is not important. He happened to be a leftist, but Rules for Radicals can and will work for anyone, so long as you follow them and are at least semi-competent. Anywhere an actual policy or logical argument is nowhere to be found, you can find Rules for Radicals. In it, old Saul lays out a bunch of rules by which you can achieve political power through community organizing and propaganda. 10 rules by which even the poorest and least powerful people can take full and complete advantage and control of anything. It's a very influential book, the Manual of Political Organizing and Propaganda Crafting on the Left. Hillary Clinton was an early Alinskyanite, and even wrote her master's thesis on him and the application of his tactics. Obama taught Alinsky for a number of years and put it into full practice before community organizing himself full-time. Point is, Alinsky basically wrote the book or manual on how the biggest hitters in the DNC have operated for years. You may not know it or recognize it, but you have been bombarded by Alinsky-style propaganda for years and years. His rules are as follows. The left's obsession with identity politics comes from something else called critical theory post-structuralism, but the propaganda that comes as a result of the nexus of Alinsky and critical theory is what gave us Obama. The reason why any criticism in regards to Obama was labeled as racist was pure Alinsky. It's something Obama's opponents, mostly being a bunch of white guys, were uncomfortable dealing with, so it constantly kept the attack on them using language and expertise they were not familiar with, and it effectively silenced them. Obama is by no means the only one to apply Rules for Radicals, though. Jon Stewart on The Daily Show used to play videos of Republicans repeating the same talking points and phrases on various Sunday news shows. He caught the Republicans using Alinsky, as Saul liked buzzwords and catchy phrases, which he thought could be used as rallying cries and turned into bumper sticker philosophy to motivate radicals into action. But also, something that the public found convincing. If you hit someone with the same thing long enough, eventually it starts to stick, radical or not. Almost everyone uses some part of Alinsky's theories or tactics, mostly without knowing it, but especially on the left. It has been their playbook since the 1970s. Clarence Thomas's Anita Broderick troubles was the left plying Alinsky to discredit him. Likewise, the accusations of racism against Jeff Sessions during a similar period. It does not have to be about race, though. The climate change debate is rife with Alinsky, particularly the last rule. Pick a target, freeze it, personalize it, and polarize it. The anthropogenic climate change as a mechanism to explain global climate and temperature shift is the only reality, and anyone disagreeing with it is a science denier. That line is classic Alinsky. You pick a goal, government regulation on individuals and industry through which governments can cement power. You pick a side and data point, all the bullshit models which showed the world ending in a decade due to runaway temperatures, and then polarize it so that anyone who disagrees is cast as a bad person. You never let up. You keep pushing that narrative, and it will shut out all opposition, to the point governments can and do control energy emissions, or during the Iraq War II electric boogaloo lead-up, where if you dared question the Bush intelligence consensus, you were un-American and not a patriot. There's nothing wrong with using Alinsky as a tactic, but I think people are better off at least knowing about it, knowing when it's being used against them, and more importantly, when they are using it themselves unknowingly. Beware those who use it, because it's typically only applied in the absence of a real argument. If someone would rather use pushy propaganda instead of a genuine argument, they probably don't have your best interests in mind.
All the money in the fucking world could buy me a second of trust or 1 ounce of faith in anything you're about. Fuck you up!